Folks, at long last, the other man in the straw hat. Please welcome Simon to the microphone.
Hi, everyone. I don't have music, I just have words, and I'm going to try something today. So I write a lot. These are not recent, but I'm going to try something. Usually I say the year that I wrote them or the time that I wrote them. I'm going to say something different at the beginning of them. This one's about 2 decades from last century. So this one's called Working Memory. So the beginning and end dates, not necessarily the beginning and end, the beginning date and the last date that I say in the middle of the poem are 20 years apart. So this is 2 decades from last century. It's called Working Memory. Working Memory. 1977. I played Star Wars with my cousins in England, which somehow involved hiding me in a dresser drawer. 1989. Jim McLaughlin paid me $5 an hour to shingle and paint his house. One day, I got tired of painting and sweeping, so I got on my bike while he was at the store and I rode home. I never went back. 1990. I wore steel-toed boots to work in the car wash. As the cars came off the line, I would stick my foot in front of the tires and let them bump over my boots. The customers tended to leave better tips if they thought I'd gotten hurt. It's all about the reaction in your face. 1995. I dropped out of college for the second time and moved in with my girlfriend in an old sawmill in Oxford. We lived there for about a year, with a waterfall and a natural pool in the backyard. I learned how to bake cakes in the microwave. 1993. A week before my high school graduation, I wrapped my parents' Dodge Shadow around a telephone pole at around 80 miles an hour. Neither of us was wearing a seatbelt, and there were 2 holes in the windshield where our heads had hit. I woke up, bumped over the steering wheel, surrounded by smoke, in time to see Mike disappearing through the passenger window. A week later, after the ceremony, my parents handed me a monogram keychain with a key to the Shadow as my graduation present. 1989. My sister and I packed latex gloves in a box for our neighbor on the weekends. He paid us more than minimum wage for this task that clearly deserved much less. I still question his motivations. 1994. The carpet store is where I really became addicted to coffee. I was the only one drinking it, and by noon, I would be on my second pot. I had plenty of concentration for stacking up the carpet samples. 1986. I ate sugar cubes on the set of Drifting Classrooms while making my debut as an actor during my time in Japan. I wore a ripped jean jacket every day on the set, and I had to cry in one of the scenes. I was one of the lucky ones who didn't need onion juice smeared under my eyes to produce tears. 1994. As a night porter, I was locked inside the restaurant all night long, supposedly to do all the cleaning. Lucky for me, I was alone. I was done with my chores within the first hour, so I spent the next 6 playing in the kiddie rides and writing in my journal and napping in the booth. 1979. I walked down the sidewalk to school with snowdrifts at least 3 feet above my shoulders. Huge machines, road scrapers, with 10-foot blades between their front and rear wheels, cleared swaths of road as their chains grated the rugged asphalt. 1993. We did everything we could think of to the kids' meal trolls. The fryer later darkened them a bit. They didn't melt. Soaking them and freezing made them brittle enough to explode against the floor tiles. The microwave was the best because lightning bolted from their joints and left char marks on their on the trolls and the microwaves. 1980. One day in the first grade, after having lived in Virginia Beach for less than a month, I had reported to the nurse because I felt sick. I was often sick when I was little. The nurse checked me out and told me to go back to my room. So I walked the 8 miles down the interstate and shocked my mother when I walked in the front door. 1995. We used to throw a football across the parkway in the middle of the night while we waited for customers to stop for gas. I saw a lot of cars seconds after they had made contact with deer at highway speed. Some under their own power for the last time, others on the back of a tow truck. 1997. I briefly returned to the gas station. We continued throwing the football until the window on the front of the building shattered. We blamed a drive-by vandal. 1996. The combination of the 4-hour commute and the inability to shake the feeling I was still holding a jackhammer made my foray into construction work in Queens only last for 2 weeks. A week after I quit, The parking garage they were working on collapsed under the weight of the skid steer. Nobody was seriously injured. 1997. Desperate for a job, I took one loading bags of cow manure and mulch into a customer's cars. Over the next 7 years, I grew into a cushy position as a buyer at the garden center. In reality, we drank a lot of coffee, made ridiculous spectacles of ourselves, and occasionally provided customers with the advice they needed. 1996. I woke up at 5 a.m. to the sound of a lawnmower. I looked down from the second floor window to see that Corey had invented lawn surfing. I rowed the boat to the middle of the lake and watched the fog rising up off the water. That was my last visit to Elmwood, that family house in New Hampshire. Working memory. Thanks, guys. That was longer than I thought. Hopefully that wasn't too much information about me. All right, so this next one is, it's in 4 sections, so I'm gonna read them all. I'm gonna tell you which section I'm in. This one's called T for Two, and this is inspired by Jean-Paul Sartre, Being in Nothingness, all right? So I wanna see if you guys can figure out why it's based on that. So this is T for Two. Part 1. Victory's perspective distorts reality. The lens only curving in favor of the in favor of the conqueror. The conquered stories fade away, or they never were stories to begin with, or the past was never present. Only a snapshot caught by the shudder of the mind. My mind shuddering at the thought of stray occurrences from truth. Part 2. I could not condemn with shame, could not send away into the cold my own soul, even though I knew I could no longer hold it as my own. Dead to myself years ago, in my own mind, the sensations of loss unbearable, unforgivable, unable to carry under the weight of decisions past on decisions past. Part 3. What am I? Not who am I. Definition of self, lost in the shuffle of family and future of both leading to a new definition of being. But which defines us? Family, who we are, future, who we want to be, failure, who we have become. And so we are torn by the 3, the pull on arms and legs, by mostly heads asking us to decide, begging us to become a self unknown. Part 4. Still unstill, unable not to move. Unable to find within the stillness of mind that can be mirrored in body. His movement becomes my stillness. Your eternal emotion becomes mine internally, crushing the stillness I have tried to propagate. T for 2. Thanks, guys. All right, so this next one's a little bit shorter. I don't know if you know who J.R. Bob Dobbs is. Does anybody know that name? J.R. Bob Dobbs. Church of the Sub Christ? No? Okay. So this is inspired by him. And it's called Fiddlesticks. And I can tell you I did write this one in 2016. So it's called Fiddlesticks. Bluegrass, I can't get out of my head with the sawing and twanging of strings. Fiddles sticking, banjos picking, but the grass could be so much greener, or much bluer, if we relocated our camp somewhere in the beautiful north. Except in winter, when the grass isn't green, can't even be seen, and they shout, nothing ever does, nothing ever does. But with a feeling, the change is just around every fence. Who's to say which is more correct? The truth of reality or the truth of my subconscious, my subgenius? Nothing will change. Nothing will change. Just a bunch of dread. Nothing ever changes. But we keep looking over, keep fiddlesticking. Fiddlestick. Thanks, guys. I have one more. Should I leave? All right. So this one I wrote it originally as a story. It was an assignment for a fiction writing class I was in college. It's called A Car You Love But Don't Trust. So I turned this into a poem around 2016, but I originally wrote this as a story. But this is about a car that I love but don't trust. Mine, 81 Rabbit, pale blue, Sally, mid-condition at least cosmetically, was a Sunday driver who only clocked 62,000 in 17 years, a mere pittance, 70 miles a week, a slow, sad existence for any machine. In November, we drove to Gettysburg, spontaneous trip, a tent and a girl, not even an acquaintance, a classmate. Curiosity captured by my map. Colored lines placed names and folded paper drew us together inside my Rabbit. Conversations floated from favorite drinks to Greek literature and other filler. A 6-hour adventure across 4 states. Pre-GPS mapping. Nonsense. A short pit stop at the Latin Love Lounge in Perth Amboy to get a redirect. Multiple exchanges across PA. The campground loop at the edge of darkness. Sally was heroic. We lay, strangers, in the tight quarters of my 2-man tent. In late fall, convenience of body heat dissolved boundaries, uniting more tightly in 20 minutes than the entire drive. Words wouldn't bond people quite like cold air will. In the morning, words came more easily because we had our hunger to discuss and broke camp early, tent and bags restowed for the short drive to Gettysburg proper. The needle on the fuel gauge had dipped low in the course of our late night meanders. No stations open out here at that hour, so we had pressed on with light foot and luck. But now, in the light of day, it appeared the bottom had fallen out of the tank, needle scraping the bottom of the E. Fingers crossed, fumes would have to be enough, but it wasn't. Sally began sputtering. Less than 100 yards to the road to go. And the sputtering now spurts and lurches, foot hard down, fuel pump whining to reach the last drops. Chugging, I whispered, pleadings with Sally, and we coast the last 10 feet to the pump. Crisis averted. I fueled Sally up, back in the saddle. She refused to start. The stress had been too much. I pushed too hard. The fuel pump had burned out from running dry. We would be forced to spend the next 2 days strangers in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Car you love but don't trust. Thanks, guys.